Hey, hey. Hi, I'm Harold Bell, and this is the Legends of Inside Sports and the Way We Were. In the early 80s, Red Auerbach of the Boston Celtics and I teamed up with NBA Hall of Famer Sam Jones to talk basketball, Celtic basketball. The name of the show, Celebrity Sports Calls. I want to talk about a recent survey, a group calling themselves Survey Monkeys and the Undefeated of ESPN. They got together to come up with a survey of the 50 greatest black athletes of all time. This is a gross, a gross injustice to the history of the black athlete. You talking about monkey business? This is monkey business with a bunch of monkeys who don't have a clue. How are you going to pick the 50 greatest black athletes of all time in one swoop? There's no way you can do that. There's no way you can do that. No, to be fair, you have to divide the survey into 1900 to 1950 for the first 50 years, and then 1950 to 2000 for the second 50 years. The athletes born between 2000 and 2050 would just have to wait their turn, especially if you're going to measure their greatness by their player domination, impact, and community service. I just don't understand how is it that you can pick the 50 greatest athletes, and in the top 10, you got two female gymnasts who not even 25 years old yet. You go pick them ahead of one of the greatest female athletes of all time. And I'm talking about none other than Althea Gibson, who back in the 50s was the first African American to win the French Open, the US Open, you name it, she won it. Plus, she was a great golfer. And you could put these two young girls who have no background in the community, great athletes. Let's not take anything away from her. The two young ladies are great athletes, but they do not belong in the survey before Althea Gibson, Jim Brown, Jackie Robinson. Come on. Who would pick a survey like this? Especially when you're using the criteria of player domination, impact, and community service. So that right there tells you that these folks don't have a clue about the history of the black athlete. Like I said, the barriers were completely different in the first 50 years, and the same can be said for the second 50 years and the third 50 years. The third 50 years are a group of athletes who go see if they're going to be able to play out and really earn that distinction of being one of the 50 greatest. You know, the problem is evident. Whoever voted for this top 50 black athletes had no clue when it comes to the history of the black athlete. This is a sham. Anytime you name, like I said, two gymnasts to the top 10 proves you have no clue. What we don't understand, and a lot of us don't know our history, that the black slave was the first professional athlete. The first professional athlete was a black slave. And this goes all the way back to slavery. If you're going to pick 50 greatest athletes, and starting from 1900 to 1950, in the top 5 or the top 1 would be a boxer. The first boxing black champion. Would you be surprised to know that his name was not Jack Johnson, Joe Louis, Sugar Ray Robinson, or Muhammad Ali? His name was Joe Gans. He was the first black boxing champion in the history of the sport. He was born and raised in Baltimore, Maryland. and died 107 years ago, August 10th. We just celebrated his anniversary of his death this month. You know, what many historians have seemed to have forgotten, that the first professional athlete was a black man. He came out of slavery during the 1700s. Slave owners had become fat and rich off the backs of free labor thanks to their slaves who worked from sun up to sundown. Many of the owners became bored and had too much leisure time on their hands. One day, an owner was watching two of his slaves race each other back to their quarters after a hard day in the fields. It was then and there the owner came up with a Kodak moment. Why not develop a competition among the slaves for entertainment? And that's what he did. The on-plantation competition soon spread to other plantations. The slaves wore the colors of their owners to distinguish one plantation from another. There were foot races and horse racing and boxing. Many times the owners would bet heavy wages on their slaves. Plantations were sometimes won and lost on the fleet of foot or knockout punch of a slave. They had everything but the wide world of sports cameras on hand to record the games. It was entertainment up close and personal. The games between the plantations helped and won many slaves their freedom, and many were hung for losing. The slaves were the experts when it came to the peculiar ways of the thoroughbred horses. Boxing and thoroughbred racing were the most popular sports. Because of those plantation games, the first pro athlete emerged. Those bloodlines produced names like Joe Gans and Jack Johnson, who would later take over the boxing world. Whites dominated professional boxing in the early 1800s, but Gans and Johnson would eventually deal racism a crushing blow and integrate the sport. The godfather of thoroughbred racing was the great Isaac Murphy. He competed in 11 Kentucky Derbies. He was the first jockey to win 3 Kentucky Derbies. There were times in the 1800s when all the jockeys were black. You go to the Kentucky Derby today, you cannot find a black jockey anywhere. You be in great luck if you find black folks in the stands. But yeah, back in the day, Isaac Murphy was he was way ahead of his time. Like I said, he won 3 Kentucky Derbies. He won the Triple Crown before there was a Triple Crown, and that included the Kentucky Derby, the Kentucky Oaks, and the Clock Handicap, all in the same year, 1884. Hey, this was way before the Triple Crown. He is considered to be one of the greatest jockeys in American history. He won 628 of his first 1,412 starts, a 44% victory rate that has never been equaled, and a record of which Hall of Fame jockey Eddie Arcaro said there's no chance that his record of winning will ever be surpassed. When the National Museum of Racing Hall of Fame was established, Isaac Burns Murphy was the first jockey inducted. The history and legend of Joe Gans had been lost on residents in Baltimore. They honor hometown heroes like Babe Ruth, Billie Holiday, and Thurgood Marshall, and rightfully so. But how did Gans slip from memory? In New York City at Madison Square Garden, there is a statue of Joe Gans. A painting of him hangs in the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C. And there's a plaque on display in a small town in Goldfield, Nevada. The plaque commemorates the historical fight Gans won there in 1906. There are no such memories of his historical landmark in Baltimore. You can walk through the streets or anywhere in Baltimore, and you never know that Joe Gans once lived there. His boyhood home on Argyle Avenue is non-existent. And the hotel he owned at Colvin and Lexington Streets, where the legendary jazz pianist Hubie Blake got his first start, is also gone. The real sad part of the legend of this great man is that he has been forgotten by his own. The Reginald Lewis Museum of Maryland, a black cultural and African American history home, has one photo of him on its walls. I now understand what playground basketball legend and NBA broadcast color analyst Sonny Hill meant when he said, "Your hometown will be the last to show you any love." Amen. A recent quote from an unknown author sheds more light on the plight of Joe Gans. And African American legends like him, it said, until the Lions hired their own historians, the glory of the hunt will always glorify the hunter. Now, spearheading this tribute in Baltimore is not Don King or some other high-profile boxing personality. It was a young man by the name of Kevin Grace. Kevin worked for Southwest Airlines ground operation, and he moonlighted as a historian during his off hours. The link and common denominator of the two men, they are both black and are Baltimore natives. Kevin was a streetwise brother in his early 40s then. He was a professional actor and a member of the Screen Actors Guild. In his screen debut on the award-winning The Wire, he had an unforgettable moment when he delivered his only line, "What the F?" He is the historian that the Lions needed to hire, but the Joe Gans story beat them to the punch. In 2007, Kevin stumbled upon the name of Joe Gans while reading a biography of a man that I consider the greatest, and I'm talking about Jack Johnson. He would later learn from a friend that Gans was born and raised in Baltimore, and as they say, curiosity killed the cat. The cat in this case was Kevin Grace. Kevin started out checking out local archives and the Inage Pratt libraries, microfilm collections, scanning turn-of-the-century newspaper for Gans' name. He found landmarks like the Hotel Gans owned and his boyhood home, only to discover that they had disappeared without a trace. He became frustrated with leads that were leading nowhere. He contacted local fighters, politicians, and community leaders. Kevin had big ideas, like a commemorating stamp with Joe Gans' picture, a street named in his honor, a sculpture, and a documentary. But politics and player haters became stumbling blocks, like they always do in our community. He made a pitch to the National Great Blacks in Wax Museum, who seemed to be caught off guard by his pitch to honor Joe Gans. But John Wilson, a deputy director of operations for the museum, was sympathetic and was impressed with Kevin's passion to see the project through. Mr. Wilson said, "Whenever we do any sort of wax figure, it is done by corporate sponsorship, but this is a story we want to tell." Kevin's savior was actor Clayton LaBeouf, who jumped on board with no strings attached. Clayton's credits included the award-winning series Homicide: Life on the Streets, and he is also the nephew of the late radio and television pioneer Petey Green. Gans' hometown may have forgotten, but boxing historians like the late Burt Sugar had not. In his book of the 100 Greatest Fighters, he has Gans rated number 15. Joe Gans is not even mentioned in the Monkeys and the Undefeated's 50 Greatest. Burt said Joe Gans invented the left jab, and he is the cleverest fighter to ever grace a boxing ring, and he was known to the world as the Old Master. We must be very careful who records our black history. For example, I would like for you to listen to an interview I did with NBA legend Red Auerbach. And we talked about basketball, and as we closed out the interview, I asked him who did he think was the greatest black athlete of all time. I want you to listen to his response, and it will tell you that the Monkeys and the Undefeated had no clue. So please, don't you go anywhere, and I want you to check out this great interview with the one and only Red Auerbach and his sidekick, my man, Sam Jones.
Welcome to Celebrity Sports Call, brought to you by Nike, who reminds you to just do it. Hello, I'm Harold Bell, and my celebrity co-host is NBA Hall of Famer and President of the Boston Celtics, Red Auerbach. How you doing, Red?
Oh, pretty good. It's nice to be here.
Red and I will be right back with our celebrity guest, former Celtic great and NBA Hall of Famer, Sam Jones.
The most efficient, complete, and effective exercise equipment in the world is youth. When you walk, you exercise with the levers and weights of your own body. You lift it, you move it from side to side. You propel it forward, you push it, you push. You don't have to join a health club to walk. You are the machine. You are your own exercise equipment. Put on a pair of Nike walking shoes, open the door, and just do it. Just do it.
Red, what kind of shooter was Sam Jones?
I've never yet had a ball player that played for me that shot with confidence the way Sam Jones did. And you know, people don't understand how many hours you practice this. They think it's just natural. It's not natural.
You got to be serious when you work on it. I didn't go out and take half-court shots because that's not what I'm going to shoot in the ball game. I shot the same shot that I was going to take off our plays, and I knew all our plays, and I knew where my shots were coming from, and those are the shots that I took. And I tell all the kids today, when you're playing out there by yourself shooting, don't take those shots you're not going to take in the game. Take the shots that you're going to use in the ball game. And build it up to where you have all the confidence in the world that the ball is going to go in.
And they never understand, the young kids today, that the great athletes practice the hardest.
Celebrity Sports Call was brought to you by Nike, who reminds you to just do it. Welcome to Celebrity Sports Call, brought to you by Nike, who reminds you to just do it. Hello, I'm Harold Bell, and my celebrity co-host is NBA Hall of Famer and President of the Boston Celtics, Red Auerbach. How you doing, Red?
Oh, pretty good. It's nice to be here.
Red and I will be right back with our celebrity guest, former Celtic great and NBA Hall of Famer, Sam Jones.
The most efficient, complete, and effective exercise equipment in the world is youth. When you walk, you exercise with the levers and weights of your own body. You lift it, you move it from side to side. You propel it forward, you push it, you push. You don't have to join a health club to walk. You are the machine. You are your own exercise equipment. Put on a pair of Nike walking shoes, open the door, and just do it. Just do it.
Sam, what was your greatest moment in sports?
They all are great, but you got my coach Red Auerbach there. And I'm going to give you something that he will remember. We had won 17 straight games. and the 17 straight games was, he had also won 17 straight games with the Washington Capitals. So he decided that we should have a curfew. And the curfew would be in his room. And he had beer and cokes and pretzels and sandwiches all over his room. And we stayed in his room until about 2:30 in the morning. And the next day we were playing the worst team in the league. And we get beaten by 20 points. And Mr. Auerbach, that was the only curfew he had ever given to us in my 12 years of playing. And I'll tell you right now, that was a moment.
It sure was, and I stopped giving curfews.
Celebrity Sports Call was brought to you by Nike, who reminds you to just do it. Welcome to Celebrity Sports Call, brought to you by Nike, who reminds you to just do it. Hello, I'm Harold Bell, and my celebrity co-host is NBA Hall of Famer and President of the Boston Celtics, Red Auerbach. How you doing, Red?
Well, pretty good. It's nice to be here.
Red and I will be right back with our celebrity guest, former Celtic great and NBA Hall of Famer, Sam Jones.
The most efficient, complete, and effective exercise equipment in the world is youth. When you walk, you exercise with the levers and weights of your own body. You lift it, you move it from side to side. You propel it forward, you push it, you push. You don't have to join a health club to walk. You are the machine. You are your own exercise equipment. Put on a pair of Nike walking shoes, open the door, and just do it. Just do it.
What was it like being the NBA's first sixth man?
Well, I felt good coming off the bench because we had the type of team that, and Harold, this is, Red pointed out, one of the things is being in shape. The Celtics, as far as I'm concerned, never reported to camp out of shape. We reported the first day being ready to play. We had such a team that other teams couldn't afford to substitute and match up with us because of our ability to run up and down the court. And so when I came in the game, their players were tired. So I enjoyed coming off the bench because I knew that I could outrun everybody who had been playing. And so I was able to score a lot of layups to get some long passes from Cooper.
That's right. And you were probably one of the fastest in the league. But I'll tell you, you had one thing that used to drive everybody crazy. It was bad enough when I liked a cigar, but when you used to take a shot, when they used to switch on you, and what did you say?
You say too late.
Too late.
Celebrity Sports Call was brought to you by Nike, who reminds you to just do it. Welcome to Celebrity Sports Call, brought to you by Nike, who reminds you to just do it. Hello, I'm Harold Bell, and my celebrity co-host is NBA Hall of Famer and President of the Boston Celtics, Red Auerbach. How you doing, Red?
Well, pretty good. It's nice to be here.
Red and I will be right back with our celebrity guest, former Celtic great and NBA Hall of Famer, Sam Jones.
The most efficient, complete, and effective exercise equipment in the world is youth. When you walk, you exercise with the levers and weights of your own body. You lift it, you move it from side to side. You propel it forward, you push it, you push. You don't have to join a health club to walk. You are the machine. You are your own exercise equipment. Put on a pair of Nike walking shoes, open the door, and just do it. Just do it.
Hey, Sam, you do a lot of clinics. If you're going to advise the kids today about the game of basketball, what would you tell them?
Well, first of all, I would tell a kid he's got to have patience. And, I'm one of the old timers. I came up behind two great backcourt people, Bob Cousy and Bill Sharman. And they were just great. And certainly coming out of a college, and not a big college, but you have a lot of young players who are coming out of the big schools who want to play immediately. They want to have that impact as soon as they come in, not realizing that a coach has experienced players, players that he can count on, players that have been with him for a long, long time. So the best thing for that kid to do is stay in shape and have patience.
That's right. They've got to be ready all the time because you never know when the opportunity is going to come up.
Celebrity Sports Call was brought to you by Nike, who reminds you to just do it. Welcome to Celebrity Sports Call, brought to you by Nike, who reminds you to just do it. Hello, I'm Harold Bell, and my celebrity co-host is NBA Hall of Famer and President of the Boston Celtics, Red Auerbach. How you doing, Red?
Oh, pretty good. It's nice to be here.
Red and I will be right back with our celebrity guest, Sam Jones.
The most efficient, complete, and effective exercise equipment in the world is youth. When you walk, you exercise with the levers and weights of your own body. You lift it, you move it from side to side. You propel it forward, you push it, you push. You don't have to join a health club to walk. You are the machine. You are your own exercise equipment. Put on a pair of Nike walking shoes, open the door, and just do it. Just do it.
Sam Jones is a member of the Basketball Hall of Fame, but one thing he did, he made the bank shot into an art. Sam, welcome aboard.
Thanks a lot, Coach. I don't call it Red, I call it Coach.
All right. Sam, you told me a story once about Will Chamberlain. You waited for him to come out to the corner.
Well, first of all, you know, Russell probably the greatest defensive player in basketball. But Will could have been just as great. But he headed for Russell to make baskets. And if he made a switch and you pass the ball into Russell and Russell dunked one time, and Red knows about this. He got one dunk, Russell dunked it one time, Will Chamberlain was not going to come out to guard you anymore because he didn't like for Russell to score any points. And so I would always try to bait him to come out. I would say, come on out here, big fella. And as he started moving to him, I would shoot the ball and holler, too late. But once Russell scored that basket, he wasn't coming anymore, Howard.
Celebrity Sports Call was brought to you by Nike, who reminds you to just do it.
Red Auerbach, a living legend, a pioneer, innovator, Mr. Basketball, Mr. Celtic, winningest coach in the NBA, a great individual and my friend. Hello, Red.
That was some kind of introduction. And keep it up, I might believe you.
Red, who do you admire and respect in sports history?
Well, Al, you know, there's so many of them, but I've always had a great deal of admiration for Jackie Robinson, Jesse Owens, and of course Bill Russell, you know, played for me. But, you know, you go on and on and on. I've got so many guys at the tip of my tongue, even a guy like what John Thompson has done. Then you talk about Doug Williams, you got Julius Erving, and the great athlete Jim Brown. But you have them in all sports, and not only sports. Hell, they're people, and I don't even think of it that way. I think of them as just great people and great athletes. I mean, you take Bill Russell. You know, he's a brilliant guy. He's got a lot of depth to him. And look at John Thompson. You know, not only has he won and done so well as a winner, but look what he's done for the character of a lot of the kids that go to Georgetown. Mm-hmm. And we all know, you know, what Jackie has done as far as pioneering, but forget all that. He's just was such a great athlete. Take Jimmy Brown. You know, he's the greatest lacrosse player in history, as well as one of the tops, if not the top fullback that ever played a game of football.
You know, Red, I've heard on many occasions they say that Jackie Robinson didn't even play his best sport. Baseball was not his best sport.
No, football, I think, was his best sport. Although he was quite a good basketball player, too. We've had a lot of arguments as to who's the greatest athlete, all-around athlete, of all time. And it's always come back to between Jackie Robinson and Jim Brown. You know, that really has done it, not the potential.
Red, let's talk about Bill Russell, but first, a commercial break. Red, what about Bill Russell's place in sports history?
People forget. They know how great he was, but they don't realize that Russell was such a winner. He won 11 championships in 13 years. 11 championships. You talk about winning the close ones and performing in the clutch. I mean, there's a guy that did it.
Red, thanks again for being here on Inside Sports Calls. Now, thank you for your comments on one of my heroes, Jackie Robinson.
I was at this big affair for Jackie Robinson a couple of weeks ago, about a month or so ago. And I had the pleasure of sitting with Jesse Jackson, and Ella Fitzgerald. And I'll tell you, that was a memorable evening. I'll never forget it. It was super.
Well, I bet too that they said the same thing, that they were in the company of Red Auerbach, a class act and a class gentleman. This Inside Sports Call was brought to you by the sponsor, who thanks you for your continuing support.
Okay, that was the great Red Auerbach, and you heard it from the man himself. Anytime the subject comes up of the greatest black athletes of all time, two names come to surface: Jackie Robinson and Jim Brown. So that should give you some indication how far off the charts that ESPN Undefeated and these survey monkeys definitely do not have a clue. You know, Red Auerbach and Walter Brown, the owner of the Boston Celtics, they were the pioneers when it came to equal opportunity in professional sports. Uh, the Celtics drafted the first black player in Chuck Cooper. Um, they hired the first black coach. They hired the first black general manager, both being Bill Russell. And they were the first team to play 5 blacks at one time. So, you heard Red talking about all these great athletes and what they accomplished. John Thompson's name was mentioned. John Thompson was definitely not a great athlete. He did some phenomenal things in winning the NCAA, first black coach to win an NCAA Division I basketball championship, but he was nobody's a great athlete. So that right there, that came out of my archives. I'm so glad that I kept that, and Red Auerbach coming to um, to the top once again, and saying what the real deal is. Like I said, we got to be very, very careful about who keeps our history in Black America. Well, I'm Harold Bell, and that's going to be it for the Legends of Inside Sports and the way we were. And I want you to remember that every black face you see is not your brother, and every white face is not your enemy. Have a great, great day.